Hi and welcome to Best in Tesla. So we all know that the Chinese are coming, but they are still struggling a bit to get huge numbers here in Europe and are being kept at bay in North America. And there are still a few things they can't just copy from Tesla that makes Tesla stand out from the crowd even in China. As we are seeing some weakness in the big Chinese machine marching forward for global domination in the car manufacturing. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So, we have been talking a lot about the Chinese are coming, and in some circumstances they are already arrived. In China, they are the dominating force today, as BYD has become the best-selling automaker in the country that is the world's biggest car market, taking the title from Volkswagen that have had that title for many decades. And that has also made China the biggest exporter of cars for the first time, taking that title away from Japan. So things are definitely changing, but not as fast everywhere as in China. In Europe, they have arrived, and some of the best-selling EVs on the continent is Chinese, but with European roots like MG or Volvo or Polestar. But BYD, NIO and XPeng are still struggling a bit to get to high sales volume. BYD's Auto 3 is still their best-selling model, but that car has only sold about 7,000 units so far here in 2024, versus Tesla's Model Y that has sold over 128,000 units. Or XPeng's G6, that is their best-selling model, with only 3,200 units, so about 40 times less than the Tesla Model Y. And someone like NIO only has about half of XPeng's sales combined. So it's not like they're not here, but they are struggling to gain real grounds here in Europe. One of the reasons is probably they are getting compared to Tesla, and even though the Chinese are making some very compelling electric cars, there are still a few hiccups, like XPeng's new G6 that is supposed to be a direct competitor to the Tesla Model Y. But I have a friend whose neighbors got the XPeng G6, and both my friend and the neighbor were very impressed with the car from the beginning, as it was very nicely made and had really nice interior and so on. But after a while, my friend was out with his neighbor driving the G6, and at some point they started the car, but the side mirrors didn't unfold. So he shut it down and turned it on again, but the problem persisted. Then he turned it on again, and the mirror unfolded. Not a big issue, but as the neighbor explained, this is not a one-off. There is something wrong all the time, small things, but as this happens all the time, he was getting frustrated with the car and sold it after only 6 months with the car. So even though the Chinese have become very good at making EVs, they are still struggling a bit with the software part. And my friend's neighbor went out and bought a Porsche Taycan Turbo S instead. Yes, the price tag was not the problem. This is of course only one little anecdote, but I have heard quite a few of these stories over the past couple of years. That BYD doesn't handle great and their software is quite buggy, so this is of course something that will make the Europeans hesitate to buy Chinese EVs, because this is exactly the kind of reputation a Chinese-made car has right now here in Europe. So this could be one of the things that is hurting them here in Europe, that not all Europeans trust the Chinese in making some good cars. But it is not only the software where Tesla is in a different league as the Chinese. We did also see the crash test that was done in China, where Tesla was the only one that passed this test, where someone like NIO and Zeekr got a very poor rating. So the Chinese are trying to copy Tesla, but it is very difficult to copy good software and safety. And in North America, they have managed to keep the Chinese out so far, as we could see in Canada as BYD paused the plans to enter the Canadian EV market following the implementation of 100% tariffs on EV imported to Canada from China. So far, the North American market has managed to keep the Chinese at bay. But they are still growing fast and will eventually come inside the North American market as well. And we can see on this chart that BYD is about to overtake Ford as an automaker on getting close to their target of 4 million cars sold, and is going to surpass Nissan in revenue here in 2024. So BYD is rising from less than 100,000 units sold in 2016 to now closing in on 4 million. Is nothing but impressive. But 90% of those sales are of course in China, so they are still struggling a bit to become a huge global player, but they are underway and won't stop here either. So I'm not trying to take anything away from BYD's rise to glory here, but to compare them to Tesla is a bit difficult, because BYD is doing this with brutal force, and Tesla is trying to do this with innovation in manufacturing. And that is also why, even though BYD has 18 different models of BEVs, Tesla still has basically the same amount of revenue on only the two models, the Model Y and Model 3, on the global scale. Because Tesla is a very efficient machine. Tesla has about 121,000 employees globally and produce about 1.8 million BEVs here in 2024. And BYD has about 900,000 employees and produce a bit less in BEVs, but even taking their plug-in hybrid into account, BYD has more than 7 times the employees, but only about double the car production, including hybrids. So that is a big difference between BYD and Tesla on that front. And it's also why Tesla can have industry-leading margins on their cars of about 19%. And someone like BYD has been losing money in the first half of 2024 and has only just got back to profits here in Q3 of 2024. Heavily subsidized by the Chinese government, of course. And that is, of course, the story for all the Chinese that are struggling to make profits at the moment on their EVs. So hard to compare any company that is losing money to someone that is making money on the same kind of product. Just as we see the Germans are losing their profits, mostly because they are losing China altogether to Tesla and the Chinese. But Tesla's manufacturing expertise is what really sets them apart, and will do even more so on the next generation platform and the half next generation and half old generation that will produce the more affordable model coming in the first half of 2025. And someone like BYD or basically any other Chinese player does not have full self-driving software in the pipeline. Their best bet in China is basically Baidu, that has the same kind of technology as Waymo in the US, geofenced pre-mapped areas. This will never work for a passenger car that someone is going to privately own, as they don't want a technology that is limited to a little area in a city and it can't even drive you to the next city. So when Tesla turns on full self-driving, I think the Chinese will be the first in line to jump on Tesla software, as they don't want to lose their lead in the EV world they have worked so hard to get by letting Tesla be the only company with full self-driving software. I think someone like BYD will pivot it very fast when Tesla shows they have solved it. And we have just seen Tesla getting a certification as one of the very few automakers in China. It received the Vehicle Privacy Protection certification according to an announcement from the Chinese Association of Mobility Manufacture and the Nation Computer Network Emergency Response Technical Team/Coordination Center in China. This certification indicates that all Tesla models produced in the Shanghai Gigafactory meet the national standard for automotive data security compliance. So this also shows us that Tesla is doing everything they can to get everything in place for Tesla to be allowed to launch full self-driving unsupervised in China. And right now, BYD's CEO hardly believes in full self-driving cars, so they have nothing when it comes to autonomy. So if their cars should not suddenly be obsolete when Tesla solve a general solution for full self-driving, I think BYD will change their mind on full self-driving cars and pivot it very fast to be one of the first customers of Tesla's software, as they don't want to be left behind now that they have come so far. So the Chinese have really come a long way, and the whole country is betting on them becoming a big part of the future of the transportation sector. So if they can see Tesla is going to have a huge edge over them, I think the Chinese and the Chinese government will quickly pivot and give Tesla access to release the full self-driving cars in China, so that the Chinese will be able to license it from Tesla as well. Because in China, as I talked about in the beginning, the Chinese have already won the race, as the Germans are losing, as the growth of the EV adoption is happening much faster than they can even keep up with. As Lagafel also shared on X, that in October BEV had almost 30% market share. And if this trend continues, then in late 2026, China will have broken the 50% BEV market share, when in early 2020 BEVs were still below 5% market share. Meaning, within more or less 6 years, half of the OEM sales will be gone through the BEV effect alone. So yes, BEVs are the future, but autonomy will change the game completely. But the Chinese are known for their quick implementation of new technology, and I think they are willing to buy Tesla software if it means that the Chinese car manufacturer will survive the swift move to autonomy. So a lot is happening, and the Chinese are coming, but does have a few flaws. Even though they can look like a Tesla and have the specs like a Tesla, there are still something called software that is very difficult, and the whole manufacturing process that Tesla has made so huge innovation in that it is not easy to just copy what Tesla is doing, even though someone like Xpeng is doing their very best to do so. So yes, the Chinese are coming, but it's mostly for the legacy automakers, as they can't really keep up with Tesla. So as Elon has also said, and many others, the future car market will probably be dominated by Tesla and the Chinese. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.